Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, I'll use your name. Don't mind me, Duni. Wait, stop. Yeah. Please feel free to ask me questions.
Okay.
So this anything drug development is from the phase 1 studies, well, sometimes phase 0, depending, to late phase post-marketing. I'm commenting. Pause recording. So this is the study startup associate 1 they're asking for. So it's almost like an entry-level study startup role. And the job description is saying that it should recognize, let me switch off this, recognize, exemplify, and adhere to ICON's values. So obviously you want to Google by the side, what are our values? One thing that I know is strong in our values is for the employee to have strong entrepreneurship ability or role or whatever. So they want to see you're taking ownership. They want to see that you're strong in like taking responsibility of a project or a role. So they really love that. I mean, those are the core things I've noticed in the organization, being there for the last 6-7 weeks. Okay. The employer, as a member of staff, the employee is expected to embrace and contribute to our culture of process improvement with a focus on streamlining our processes, adding value to our business, and meeting client needs. So especially if you are interacting with a client, and as a study startup associate, you'll be interacting with the site. You're not interacting with the sponsor. So you're not necessarily interacting with the person who gave the project, which is like the pharmaceutical company or the biotech company, but you're interacting with the sites, the investigator. So you're probably, and I would table out in your, in the job description, the things you do, and they want you to be meeting clients' needs. So they're also a sector of your client, right? Because if the job doesn't go properly, in terms of audit findings and all that, they may not get approval, they may not be able to market their drugs, they may not have the safety requirements to file their proposal for drug approval. So you want to make everybody happy plus internal customers because you also work with them.
Okay.
Perform feasibility. So one of the reasons why I'm explaining everything in this role is so that you can look back at your past and say, maybe have I performed feasibility before? Doing my marketing or whatever, is there something in feasibility that I've actually performed that I can explain in my CV so that these keywords will be picked up? So perform feasibility. Feasibility, in my experience as a CRA, is you are actually going through records. First of all, you go through like many records on paper or on the laptop. Does this hospital or does this institution have the kind of patients I'm looking for? Is there a key opinion leader, an investigator that can do this study? So you are kind of filtering through. So when you now get a selection of them, usually right now, so when I was a CRA, it was paper-based, but right now, a lot of these things are online, computer, and a lot of companies, institutions in the US already have their records standardized and already collected this data together. So what we'll do is try to filter and try to search through either the keywords or the therapeutic area or the disease area to try and get these people. When we now get them, we'll now call them. Maybe like
sorry, sis. Where do you now do the search? On which, like, is it just Google generally?
So you can start with Google. Google because all these people are on Google. We used an internal platform that had collected a lot of those data. I don't remember the name that we used in Rush, but it was some internal platform that it was from, I think, from Roche Genentech studies that had like some of their past people they have worked with and how long it took them to, I would explain more of that in your work. Like when you're talking about, so it's site selection process. So this is like site selection before the whole feasibility. How long does it take this site to do an approval to ethics committee? What ethics committee do they use? I look at the ethics committee, is this ethics committee going to give me a problem or not? Maybe from their history, maybe they'll say this one takes 36 weeks and I need my approval by 10, maybe 20 weeks. So, you know, that one is already exceeding that ethics committee, that site. So this is like a site selection process. When you now get the site, so site selection, site identification, and it's Google search, it's some media, some form of data. I don't know what tool. I can try and find out in specific, but let me write that question because that's a good one. What tools is used for site identification?
Yeah.
Because one thing you want to know is that every pharmaceutical, every CRO, everybody, they will have their own different one. So it may not be the same, but you're understanding the key principles and actually having a good name. I'm going to get a name so that you can, even if it's that name you're using to front and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so feasibility. So I now have a protocol. I've read through the protocol. I understand the key things that are required, the key milestones, the key endpoints of the study, visits, collection of samples, administration of drugs, and things like that. I will now call the investigator along with the coordinator. Those are the usual two people. Hi, you know, we've done several studies with you, or, you know, if it's a new one and we want to know if you'll be interested in this study, we'll give a brief background of this study. Usually there's already a tape that we would have, like, sorry, a script that we'll have. And look at it that, okay, you know, but you should understand the script and you should be able to say the script such that it's not like you're reading from it, but, you know, you understand what is required and you're trying to sell it to the investigator that would love you to be part of this study. These are the number of people that are on your team. We've worked with you before, so we know you already have that. This will not really be a challenge in very established institutions like that, like in the US. However, for smaller institutions, think about Nigeria, you know, this may not be the case. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you first feasibility, so you talk and say, okay, do you have this? You talk about the lab. Does the lab have a centrifuge? Maybe you need a centrifuge for some of the processes, things like that. So feasibility is going through the personnel, the either the equipment required in the study, going through the protocol and seeing that the investigator has sufficient for the study. And when the investigator now says yes, you know, so okay, your site is selected, so there will be a contract letter. Now, when there's a contract letter, usually the first thing we want to find out is that there is a CDA, so a confidentiality disclosure agreement. And sometimes the sponsor would have it with the hospital. That's the institution. So everybody in that institution is covered. Sometimes it will have it with that individual investigator, and the investigator will be running their trial. So you need a confidentiality disclosure agreement, and then you need a contract. Now, usually a contract would state, okay, so this is what you're supposed to do. This is how much we are going to pay you for what you're going to do. This is how much, you know, the fees for the laboratory samples processing or for storage or whatever. It will kind of list all that. Now, where the issue of negotiation comes in is that usually maybe there's a fair market value. So you say we're trying to negotiate the contract according to or vis-a-vis the fair market value. Fair market value that shows, okay, usually for processing samples in the state of Los Angeles, in California, it costs XYZ amount. So why is this person charging more? So trying to negotiate. Small companies may be doing one-on-one. When I was with Roche, it was a different ballgame because we actually had a contracts department that would be doing negotiation. And some of these institutions already, some of these investigators, they already have their own contract staff. So I'm not actually talking with them. The contract staff is talking to the contract staff of Roche. So what I usually am doing is following up. Have you guys met? What is the stage? Is there an agreement? Is there any issue? And depending on the kind of history that site has, if they already have Roche template or Roche already has, they already have the expectations, there may not be much to do. You're just making sure have they received it, processing times, Other startup activities, this is broader, but I will say that the most three things that we usually do as study startup is, first of all, ethics committee submission and approval, regulatory documents, quality control or quality assurance to make sure it's up to date, as well as preparing the site for like the activation, so relationship with the site. So once you have the ethics approved, well, ethics, you have, for ethics, there's one thing I have to tell you in ethics. Usually when you are doing ethics submission, you would also have informed consent form submission, and sometimes that involves translations depending on the site. And so you may need to do translation, relate with global study management to ensure that the documents are translated, the number of languages that translation is needed for. You would need to do the request. So there's a lot of internal requests. Do the request for, okay, I did Spanish, I did Cantonese translations. Do I need for this, the cards, so the patient-facing cards that the patient would use, anything that the patient is going to use, I probably would need translation for, and I will go ahead and do it, things like that. And when I do that and submit to the ethics committee, so what does the ethics committee require for submission of translation? What are the things they need? So I will submit. So you are really the interface between the ethics committee and the site. Well, now I need to say that again. Usually in GCP, you will learn that site relates with ethics committee. That's the foundation of GCP. Yeah. And then the sponsor relates with things like FDA and all that. However, I have found out that now in the US, they have like some institutionalized ethics committees. So there's Advara, for example.
Advara, yeah.
I don't know if you've worked with Advara. So Advara is an online platform. Yeah. So I, as a sponsor, I can see all my sites. I can see what stage. I can see if there's a question they ask the site and maybe there's an issue. I can prompt the site. So what you're trying to do as a study startup specialist is you're trying to manage time. You're trying to manage, is there any issue? Is there any roadblock in the study startup process? So that is for ethics committee submission. If I remember anything else, I'll let you know. The second thing is quality control of the regulatory documents. So see, prepare, review, and submit submissions to ethics, which is what I just, yeah. Then I'm regulatory. So I never did anything apart from Advara, but I know there's WIRB, WIRB, And I know that in Canada, the Health Canada one, which you also submit the, okay, no, let's not go to the regulatory documents yet, but Health Canada, so there may be specific requirements, but so I know for web, there's also timing. For some institutions, you have some institutions required language, compulsory language that must be in the text. So some institutions will send you that based on our own institution, this is what should be in the ICF. So you do it vis-a-vis your own ICF and say, well, we have some specific language that needs to be done. So you are going to manage the process. If there is some conflict, you need to refer to science or refer to legal, because every word counts. And of course, every word may have a legal tonation. We've always had that issue, especially, let me try and remember what section. There's payment to the patients, the wordings of how the patients are going to be paid or remunerated is a very important section in the ICF, I would remember. How the documents are going to be kept or the samples, things like that. I know they are always important because some schools, some institutions will have their own law and Roche may have their own law. So there has to be blending. And sometimes you as a study standard specialist cannot be the one who to say, this is what we are going to do. So you would refer to science and legal for that. So all other necessary regulatory documents. So this is where you have your FDA 1572. It has to be properly filled. I've never found it so difficult until I worked here in Canada. In Nigeria, it was so easy. But I found out that because there are so many options of things, there could be like different mistakes. So an investigator may have a lab in 27B and the site is actually 25A. You know, all those things which in Nigeria, you just have one place, everything, they do everything there, even if you know, that kind of thing. So there's more attention to detail, address change, things like that. Who is going to do the sample collection, all on the FDA. Sorry, I said sample processing, like the laboratories, whatever laboratories are listed, everything must be listed on the FDA 1572. So you have the CVs of all the investigators, the CVs of all the site staff. Some staff, usually all we need on the 1572 is CVs of those on the
delegation.
Well, no, not all on the delegation list though. Let me try and remember. Sorry, pause. So checking the CVs, the FDA 1572, all those that are listed on the 1572, you must have their CVs, GCP certificate of the PI. Some institutions will say, well, based on their own laws and regulations, everybody must be listed on the 1572. So therefore you need their CVs. So yeah. So the third thing, I remember I mentioned the third thing was relationship with the site. And that relationship is really like contract management, making sure that there's confidentiality disclosure agreements, the back and forth. So those are like the major three things that you do. Budgets and contracts, ethics committee submission and regulatory documents. Okay, so now what I want you to do is based on the things I've explained, you may not have done exactly anything like that, but you already have trails of this in your current job. I want you to flesh it out in your CV. Your job in Nigeria, you did marketing. You want to flesh out a bit of relationship with ethics, a bit of relationship with regulatory, site identification, because I try and identify the PI that you go and sell anything to. It's not everybody that you just go one doctor by the street. Who are the key opinion leaders? Our urologists will launch by our top, things like that. So you just need to use the language to try to tailor down that this is what you're doing. So this includes, but is not limited to, ethics, regulatory, other regulatory authority approvals for clinical trials. So you want to talk about you want to say FDA, Health Canada, NAFDAC, if you did anything for Europe, if you even did a study or you did anything that included Europe submission, because there are some drugs, for you to sell those drugs in Nigeria, they needed Europe approval. EMA, you write it there. Trial amendments, you want to also, they are saying that when there are amendments, so if there's a protocol amendment while I'm still trying to set up the site, I will come from it.
Okay.
Study notifications, so if there's any notification of change of PI, change of anything, communication to the ethics committee. Now, it's so simple in some organizations where everything, decide to go and do it online. You just go there and approve. Sometimes if there are smaller trials and smaller companies, you may need to write a letter to aid and all that. So authorizations for import, expectation of investigational products, clinical supplies, and biological. Then there's drug destruction form. Drug destruction form, they won't even, in my study, they didn't even really want me to fill it because they'll say the CSS, the person that he is in the second leg of the study, Loma Shea, Bubu, dirty work here. So you just make sure they fill their drug destruction form. However, the drug destruction form is trying to say the rules of how the drug must be destroyed after the study or during this, or if the study is, if the drug is expired or for whatever, how are we going to destroy it? It's important to document that because, of course, it's an investigational product and you don't want it lying around. So drug destruction rules should actually follow the rules of the organization that it is in. However, some of them will say, no, come and account for your drugs. So those kind of things want to be clear ahead of time. So country-specific ICFs. I don't know what SIS is. I've never seen that before, but ICFs, yes. Prepare and finalize country-specific files. So just like Health Canada, applicable for, review and translate drug labels. So I'm sure this is going towards observational studies that the drugs have already been approved. They're already been marketed. However, there wants to be a safety pharmacovigilance study after, which is like a phase 4. So you want to review and translate the drug document. And you can flesh a lot of your marketing on phase 4. You flesh a lot of your marketing on phase 4. So you want to have these things in your CV already, picking up all these words so that it's transferable. Perform independent quality review of submission packages. Collect and maintain current regulatory submission information. So what are the current rules for submission to Health Canada, blah. Translation and coordination of translations for documents required for submission. Perform timely and accurate data entry of regulatory documents, submission stats, and maintenance of country investigation information in the appropriate clinical trial management system. So this is CTMS. Don't know if you are familiar with CTMS, but every company has their own type of CTMS. What does it track? It tracks regulatory documents that have been submitted, the submission status, the investigator, the accounts, and the contact information. You want to say that you're on top of your CTMS, you know how to do that, and that is not big deal. Any company you go to, there'll be a CTMS training. The one I used in Roche is totally different from what I'm using now, and the level of access will differ. So right now, I'm not doing imputes. So my level of access is different. I can oversee, things like that. Copy and route incoming correspondence, answering of mails, internal documentation, etc. as appropriate. So usually if there's any internal, there's not a lot of internal documentation within study startup based on my experience in my Roche role, because you are just starting off, right? There will be more of this, I believe, during the conduct of the study, where you say, okay, we agree that patient XYZ should not take or whatever. This one is just send us these documents. How far have you sent it? What are the issues and everything? However, if there's a notice that goes across, so for example, we are trying to remove the last FDA 1572 that we submitted. We needed to submit another one. That kind of notice goes in. There was already that filed FDA 1572. We need to document that we sent it to the site and they are aware. And then this is appropriate. So what we will just do is just send it to I'll just PDF the file and send it to my city and say, please, can you file this for me? You know, and have you filed it? And I can go to the electronic transmission master file and see, okay, have they filed this? Have they filed that? Have they filed that? Timely follow-ups for queries made by the ethics committee. What's CA? I don't know what CA is. Authorities, yeah, competent authorities. Responding for the collection of critical documents required for IP release. So this is now like, you know, maybe, I don't know if drug development is formed, to know where drug destruction form is there, but there are some critical documents that some companies at a smaller level will require that, okay, do you have all these check box? Honestly, in Roche, everything, but we want to share less, you just, yeah. Attend study meetings, you know, I'm a team player, you know, working in other people, blah, blah, blah. Presentation in study meetings, you've had study meetings, sister, you've sold drugs, you've had meetings with your team, you've had business development meetings, you've had study team meetings, okay? And there are some meetings, especially investigator meetings, where we, you know, we are trying to tell the investigator about the product, which is what you do when you're doing market launch. It's just that a lot of times you have input from them of how to edit, how some of the things about the study, you have a chance to give a feedback that it may even impact the protocol. Assemble and distribute study materials to clinical project teams. So we use Box. I don't know if you've heard of Box. It's like a normal Dropbox where you because of all the, maybe like, they don't want to use things like Google Drive. And some companies do Google Drive, but just try to make a lot of security. So I know a lot of companies do Box. I know my current Icon does Box, where they would send the Box link to the company and then they can log in and have access to some of the files instead of trying to do USB or trying to send by emails. You don't send all those things by emails. You try to send it by Box, depending on whatever that.
Is it like a software or something? Or
no, it's like
like SharePoint kind of.
It's like a SharePoint, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So including materials to study, investigator binders, vendors, blah, blah, blah. Of course, we are familiar with ICA, GCP, relevant, and SOPs. You can't be familiar with SOPs until you join them, but you want to show that you understand the concept of SOPs. You've even been involved in developing of SOPs, and development of SOPs, even if you've not done it and had to write it down, but you've had to leave instructions for some of your investigators or whatever, or your doctors, let me call them doctors. So you need to start putting these wordings in your work. Assist and provide support to the study startup lead to maximize submission effectiveness, minimize limers, and ensure sponsor satisfaction. So the study startup lead, which is like the one that represents all of you at the meeting, depending on the number or depending on how big the study is. So yeah. So I particularly want you to go through your CV again, start trying to remember your experiences and try to see, okay, how can I impute all these things into my CV so that it's more relevant for the job. Okay.
Okay.
So my typical day as an SSUS, I get to the office, because if I have a meeting on everything, I already have like what they have asked, like a to-do, that this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what you need to cascade to the site. But these are the 3 places I sign in. First of all, I sign into my email. Have I got anything from my site? Yes or no? Go back to the sent emails. Am I expecting anything from my site? Yes or no? Then I can follow up on that. Number 2, my contracts, where are they? So this one, I have to go to the contracts. Okay, what's up? I know that they sent you the contract to review. Is there any issue with the budget? Is there anything you want me to look at? Can go over the contract if I want to say, okay, I think there are issues here. I think there, you know, number 2. Number 3, ethics committee. I just log into Advara. What's the submission status? Have they submitted? What is holding? Is there anything pending? Do I have any message? Do I need to follow up on someone? So I can add it to a note that I want to follow up on the side. Then number 4, I go to regulatory documents. I can review all the regulatory documents I have on ground. If there's any issue, I take a note. Now I'll now go back to my sites one by one. I had like 23 sites, and I'll say, okay, I reviewed this. There's XYZ issue. The ones I don't have, I don't need to contact them. The ones that are on call, on schedule, I know that they are working on it. I can just send them reminders. You understand? So those are my typical job. Now, if I go back to like the initial start when I've not even started, my typical job is I go through the platform. I'm trying to do site selection, site identification, site selection. I go through, and when I'm able to do that, I'm able to select, okay, from all these sites, I think we have 15. However, usually it was the study startup lead. Well, in case you're told to lead, you know, it's a study startup lead that will go that I can do this myself. It's just that they always just try to delegate it to one person to do everything. When I have all the sites calling, do I want to schedule a meeting for feasibility with the client? Do I want to schedule and then discuss it? Of course, I have to have read the protocol before that. Now, behind all these things, we had a lot of trackers, because in study management, people need to see that the overall, like the bosses need to see what is going on. So they don't have to be the ones doing it, right? So I have to upload my trackers that, yes, I received the regulatory document from site San Francisco, and yes, it is okay. And it is good to go. I've uploaded it on the cloud or whatever, or I've sent it to my CTA to file for me, you know, things like that. So we have trackers to say we received it and we sent it and it has been filed. We received it, there's an issue, it has been sent back. Whenever it comes back, it will be filed. A reminder sent, you know. So trackers help the management to get visibility of what you're doing. And we use standard Google trackers, standard Google Excel sheet, nothing fancy. This is when it came in, this is when it went out. We used to have this this platform, drug dev. But we found out that maybe some sites will say they cannot log in, they cannot log that. So we just download everything, send it to my CTA. My CTA will file. So those are like standard, those were like what I would do every day. Check. So go in, my emails, check contracts, check my IRB, check my regulatory documents, check my trackers. If I'm doing feasibility, check my site identification, and that's it. Now, they may be trying to go into new terrains or new sites. So they will say from your trackers, can you deduce what are the timelines you see for this site in terms of ethics submission? Who has a better timeline? Can we nominate from our present pool who we want to go to the sister study? And those depend on the timelines. How long did it take for them to submit to ethics committee? How long did it take for them to process from submission, from giving them the protocol to submission to ethics committee and receiving approval? How long did it take for the contract to be administered? How long did their regulatory documents get sorted out? Okay.